Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very exciting episode of Gemini Rising. My name is Natalie Sadie, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Anne Woolke.
Hello.
And we are incredibly excited to bring a Highvibe favorite onto Gemini Rising, and that is our human design go-to, the Human Design Maven, Dylan. Welcome.
Thanks, ladies. I'm very happy to be here, and that intro is amazing. I love that.
Oh, good.
It really sets the tone.
Do we look like a manifestor and a generator in it? What do you think?
Definitely feel it. Yes.
All right.
And I have to give the generator credit. She built every single part of that. I just contributed photos.
She just told me what to do.
Isn't that what they are always doing?
And I responded.
I was going to say, Anne, do you want to kick us off? Because we've been going backwards and forwards about this and very excited about how to get into this conversation because we have so many questions.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. And I wanted to know if Dylan could provide for us a very simple website where we could go and everyone could look up their charts so that we would have that while we're talking about some of the basics of human design first. So Dylan, where could people go?
So I gave you guys that link.
I have just put it in the live chat just for everybody that's looking for the link that Dylan's about to talk about.
It's Jovian Archive. This is the OG source of human design that Ra, the original messenger of human design, created. It's the simple way to get your chart, get your eyes on your chart for the first time for free. There are more advanced charts that I use from a site called Genetic Matrix, but we can get into that if you were to get a reading or you want to look deeper into some other aspects that we'll probably talk about during the show.
All right.
And so we were chatting before we started, and the reality is we talk about human design all the time on this show, and we know that there are a lot of people that are interested in human design but don't necessarily understand it. So is there a way, because I know it can become very complicated as we go further and further down the path, but is there a way, Dylan, that you can kind of just break it down simply and explain the different profiles that exist?
I think that the complex idea only comes from when our mind first lays eyes on this really intricate looking chart. But when you really learn human design a little bit deeper, just beneath the surface, you can see that it's actually about very easy to understand repeating patterns. And human design is very much based in the number 6. So there are hexagrams, there are 6 profile lines basically that you can possess in your profile. And yeah, we'll get into it. So the types are really the bread and butter of human design, and it's the aura types. So we've got different people in the world that have different electromagnetic fields that behave in different ways. We have about 70% of the population that are known as either manifesting generators or generators. If you have generator in the title, you have an open, enveloping aura. So whenever you see those pictures of like sacred geometry with the toroidal field that's kind of coming out and going in, or if you even see like pictures of the Earth's magnetic field and that magnetic field that protects us from solar winds and space debris, kind of like our force field, that's what the generator aura is like. It's this toroidal field that goes 2 arms lengths in every direction. And for generators, it's all about being a responder because your aura naturally pulls life towards you because you're enveloping, because you're magnetic by nature. The things that match your frequency, good or bad, will be attracted to you. And when those things touch your aura or enter into your field, you have a gut response to those things. And that gut response that comes from generators and manifesting generators basically says, I have energy for this or I do not. It's about this different way of navigating life that's not so much about, your programming and the opinions of the mind and your conditioning and what you see as possible from what you've been taught, but really letting the body's energy lead and say, yes, I want to do this. Even though you may have been told, no, you can never do that. That's unseemly. That looks bad. That's weird. But if your gut says yes, it will always guide you in the right direction. So the big thing about generators being the 70% majority is that they set the tone of the frequency of the planet. So when we talk about the collective ascension and all of us rising in frequency and the Schumann resonance going to these insane spikes, that's the generators. And it's really the generators that are the contingent that will open the path for the ascension of our planet. If the generators are asleep, if the generators are stuck doing things that their life force has not said yes to, if the generators are conditioned out of connection with their body's voice, we live in a world that's held down because their frequency is held down. So even though it can seem like, 70%, if I'm a generator, that's not very rare or special. It actually is, because every generator is very unique unto themselves, although they may carry the same type of aura. And they're the ones that set the tone for this whole experience. They bring this world to life. They are the life carriers of the planet. So we need to have tremendous respect for generators, and we really need to focus on them as far as waking them up first to their nature. Because when generators are happy and in love and in alignment, in love meaning with themselves, self-love, then everything else flows for the rest of the types. So generators, don't discount yourself because there's a lot of you. It's a very individual journey for each of you following that sacral response. Next up is the projectors. Projectors are about 20%, and they're the new type. They're the new kids on the block. So projectors have only been incarnated in this realm since 1781. And they have a very specific design that's all about focusing and penetrating into the aura of the other person to deeply know and feel and sense how that person operates. Because the projectors are the ones that are here to create awareness. So all these generators, they're the ones with all the energy. They're the ones setting the tone. They're the ones that are really either accelerating us forward or holding us back. The projectors are the ones that have come to awaken the generators. They're here to know these generators deeply and help to guide them to the highest use, most aligned use of their energy for them. So when you meet a projector, you're meeting somebody that is designed to see you. And that can be very uncomfortable for people, because sometimes we're self-conscious, or we don't know ourselves very well, or we're not ready to have those truth bombs, because it can feel vulnerable to be truly seen. And a projector cuts right through all of your mental stories, what you think you're showing about yourself, and they get straight to the heart and soul of who you are and bring that to the forefront for you to appreciate it, for you to unlock more appreciation for your true nature, and to hopefully apply your vital energy as a generator to your evolution, not giving it away to everyone else in hopes for receiving validation, love, money, etc. So projectors are here to work with the generators. That's 70% generators, that 20% projectors, working together to awaken and unlock the frequency potential of the collective. Now, projectors are here to operate by invitation only. So they cannot give you guidance without you welcoming them into your field. If they try and do that, it's just not going to work. You won't hear them at the right frequency. You won't see what they're trying to show you. And it's leaving the projector bitter and the generator frustrated. So just like every flower has a certain scent and signature that attracts a certain butterfly or bee or whatever the pollinator is, generators and projectors are very much like this. There are frequency matches. And so for projectors, you need to know you're not here to help everyone, although you probably could, because you can see them so deeply. And generators, not every projector is the one for you. So really following the gut response and what really compels our interest on the generator side, and waiting for the aligned invitations for those who truly see you, so you don't waste your precious energy on the projector side. Projectors also work with systems. They're very much here to see the big picture and also how to place the individual talent within the larger picture. Then we have, of course, manifestors, Natalie, 8%. And manifestors are really interesting beings because they have a dense and repelling aura. So what that does is allows them to move energy tremendously. So like if there's all these generators milling around and they're just waiting for something to respond to, a manifestor steps into the space and it's almost like a bowling ball and the bowling pins. It goes boom, and it creates this impact. And that impact is going to be processed individually by each person. The manifestor is not necessarily in control of how they impact or who they impact, but it is part of their journey to notice, like, is there a pattern in who they impact? Because that kind of relates back to your purpose. But manifestors bring this spark and this impact that catalyzes people into new directions. So we've got projectors waiting for an invitation. We've got generators waiting to respond. And manifestors are the only type, like their name suggests, that are here to get things rolling, to get things started. So while they're this 8% small percentage, they have a huge role in sparking us and setting new things into motion. And I've seen in my work over the years that manifestors are the ones that are typically most in connection with God, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, because they receive the instructions that need to go out to the collective first. So if the universe wants something to happen, they're going to send it to the manifestor first so that they can start impacting people with it. And then the generators will continue and finish the job, because manifestors are not here to finish what they start typically. And the projectors will oversee and manage the generators in completing those missions so that they can do it efficiently and that the right people are assigned to the right tasks and so on and so forth. So there is this symbiosis with all of the types. And the more that we stay in our lane, the more resistance-free the journey of being who we are is. So then finally we have reflectors. I know we have at least one reflector in the audience. And reflectors are 1% of the population. So they are the feedback mechanism. They're here to look at the whole process and the dance of the generators, projectors, and manifestors doing their thing, and manifesting generators. And they can see what everyone else is missing because they're not caught up in any of the other types' business. And because as a reflector, they have no internal definition, meaning that they're kind of like this clear quartz crystal. You know, there's not a lot of, personal subjective energy in there. Of course, they're a human with an ego like everyone else, but they're meant to be more of this objective guide. So in old days, there's like this model of, like, in tribal culture, that the reflector might be like the shaman, somebody who can see people and the larger body of the community and really sense the health of the community and provide this very unique guidance or objective wisdom about how things are going, so that we can have a feedback. We could be going, on our journey, doing all our things, getting really caught up in what our role is, and the reflector is here to reflect back how we can improve. What's interesting about reflectors is that because they're always changing, they're always kind of taking on other energy and then switching to another energy, or reflecting what the cosmic weather is in that moment, they have this very high variability in their capabilities. Sometimes they feel like a manifestor. Sometimes they feel like a projector. Sometimes they feel like a generator. And so to prevent the reflectors from having to live a life of disappointment, where they're committing to things based on a momentary impulse of manifestor energy or projector energy that then dwindles, but they've committed to something, we need to give them 28 days at least, a lunar cycle, to make a decision. So they are very slow and gradual in the way that they move. And they do that so that they don't get mistaken for something else and sign up to a life that's not truly theirs, only to see that they don't have the energy to complete that process when it comes time. So reflectors are very, very unique to me, because they're going to show you a part of you that even a projector could not see. because there's no attachment to the way that they see you. And that lack of attachment is very objective, and that objectivity is very high level. So those are our 5 basic types. The generators are split between manifesting generators and generators. And all of that is interesting because we have this like other type coming up in the future after 2027 called the Rave. And it's like they're almost so present now that it made me want to it felt like there was another type I needed to talk about. And so this is more abstract and it gets a little into the future, but there is a new type coming just around the corner after 2027. And this new type is essentially a compendium of all the types. They don't have a fixed way of operating, and they only work in group or unity consciousness. So raves is what they're called. Raves, which it's short for rays of love. These are beings that only work in group consciousness, meaning that they don't have an individual ego like us. They don't have an individual personality. They only function properly when they come together in 3 or more, and they have a trans-auric entity that emerges from them. So imagine like a super being that takes all of the brain power of 3 people and amplifies it into one super personality. And this is a whole new frontier, and maybe we'll get around to talking about it more a little bit later, but it felt like it needed to be mentioned.
I have so many questions just following up on those basics, but one question that I immediately think of when you talk about reflectors is this. That seems like the most difficult type to be in the world the way that it is right now, right? The way in the way that we live lives today. Is there space for reflectors to be able to retreat for 28 days or to mull over things? Do they get overwhelmed by reflecting so much of what's going on now? So I'm just wondering, what's the ideal role for someone who's a reflector?
So reflectors are built for this, which is interesting. They do have a bi-layer aura, which means there's 2 layers to them. And that inner layer protects them. It's like Teflon, which means although they may temporarily reflect some energy from a person that they're in contact with or the transits, they don't hold on to any of it. And that's what allows them to move through life seamlessly. And for the most part, it's what protects them from the toxicity of everyone. And so that doesn't mean they're, foolproof. There are ways that, reflectors can get bogged down. And it's usually because they're trying to be someone that they're not. It's almost like they get tricked into believing the reflection that they are holding. And they try and stick with that reflection because maybe it gets them approval or love or security. And then that breeds disease for them because they're trying to hold a frequency that is not appropriate for them. But just like I was saying, reflectors are all about overview. So let's say that you have, a Fortune 500 company, and everyone in that company is so focused on the role and mission of the company and whatever, the service that they provide is. A reflector could be brought in almost as a consultant to see where are the leaks in the energy, where are the departments that need a backup person or a better suited role, where are there places in the market that this company could be, serving that they don't even see yet. They're here to show us everything that we don't see. So this could be anything from a shaman to a therapist to, a business scaling consultant. It really isn't limited to the role. And every reflector is unique in themselves as well. So even though there's no consistent definition in their design, they still have activated gates that give them themes they have these consistent themes, overarching themes in their story. So some reflectors might feel more splenic. They might feel more instinct based, and that's how they get their guidance. Other reflectors might be more about the voice even, and they kind of plug into whatever communication style they're around and are able to chameleon that and even optimize that Maybe they can see the gaps in the communication between parties in a family unit. So they're really here to see in between the lines. And there's a lot of versatility in building awareness when we talk about all the ways that that could be applied.
I have a question about reflectors because I'm fascinated by them, and I'm sure I've probably met some in my life, but I haven't been aware of what their human design was. So whether it be that it's somebody that I've met and it's not appropriate to have that conversation, or somebody I met before I even understood human design. But is it possible that I maybe haven't encountered any reflectors or don't have any in my life because being an Aries, being a manifestor, and being as sort of strong and as forceful as I am and as impatient as I am, that energetically I would struggle with a reflector who needs time to make decisions and all of that, whereas I'm someone that's making decisions as I go, and I get frustrated by anybody moving slowly in life.
The thing is, reflectors are also different that you may not even, it's not like they all look like they're moving slow. Some reflectors that I know are some of the most productive people in my circle. And it's partially because of the environment that they're reflecting. And that's the other piece that I want to mention for reflectors, is that ultimately they're not really here to just reflect one person back to them. That is what happens, and they are a good mirror in that sense, but they're really here to find their ideal environment and plug in and be that core person in the environment. So like, and if you were going to Paris and you wanted to find the best baguette or the best croissant or whatever, you would ask the reflector, because they've sampled all the different energies of that environment and they know which one is unique, which one stands out, and that's their other superpower. They can really see and feel who's living their design, who's in alignment with themselves, and therefore cultivating and differentiating their unique gifts, and who is just another homogenized, kind of falling in line with everyone else. So, I think reflectors come into your life for a reason. They seem, that's what it seems like to me. There is like a faded element to a meeting with a reflector to show you something about yourself. Or if you happen to have one at the core of your community, that's a huge asset. That's somebody who's going to nurture the health of that community. And it's also it's kind of the canary in the coal mine. If that reflector is happy and thriving, then the community that they're in is happy and thriving. If the reflector of your community is sick and burdened and lost, that's your litmus test. That's your reflection. And then you can do something about it, because just their presence is bringing awareness. So I don't know, Natalie, maybe it's your time now that we've had this conversation.
I think
the woodwork reflectors,
right? If you're a reflector, come and introduce yourself. I want to meet you. I think for me, it's always when I'm reading about reflectors, and like I said, I'm just not consciously aware of any that have been in my life. It doesn't mean that they haven't been there. It's just the awareness isn't there. But every time I hear about the 28-day cycle to make up their mind, the Aries in me goes, oh, just no. You can't take that long. And so that's why I've always wondered, and I am genuinely fascinated by reflectors as a design type. Sorry, Anne, were you going to ask something?
Well, okay, here's a question, Dylan, that I don't know enough to even ask you. What if I'm a manifestor in quantum, but a reflector in design and human mode? Not sure if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Quantum is the life that you live. So you really got to go with what's in the quantum. And all that means is, when we're looking at a human design chart, we have a personality side that's about our personality, our conscious mind. We have a design side. A design side is about your body, your physical vehicle. How is this body designed energetically? And the quantum is when we bring them both together and create you. You're not just your body and you're not just your mind. And that's kind of the magical quality of being human, is where this melange, where this meeting space of these two energies. And we can parse those energies out and look at, okay, this is how my conscious works on its own, and this is how my unconscious works on its own. But when we're living life and making decisions, the quantum is what we have to respect, because you can't just bring your body somewhere and leave your mind. Maybe in like certain circumstances of like the dream realm, but there's a chart for that. We have dream charts for human design that shows you how you look when you're dreaming. You're only a 5-centered potential when you're in your dream space. You're not a 9-centered human. So focus on the quantum, because when we try and break it down in these little pieces, that's the mind trying to jump in and control the situation and be like, no, I'm special over here. Let's look at that. It's like, no, just love yourself for your holistic self. Live like that. And if it ends up being on your path to break it apart and do that, you'll know when it's time for that. And so, yeah. And also, Natalie, I know a reflector in our audience, and she does amazing readings, and I will give you her information.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that so much. So I just need to say at this point, Dylan and I did an interview probably a year and a half ago, and we broke down everything about human design, the lines, the gates, everything like that. So I'll link that in the description below if people want to dive more deeply into that, just so that we can obviously keep moving with our conversation today without repeating exactly the same thing. So one of the things that I've been learning about recently is the difference between personal profiles and interpersonal profiles. So can you talk a little bit about that and why it's important to understand not only yourself, but who the people around you are?
Yeah. So a big part of the deeper science of human design is showing us that since like the Big Bang, we've had these crystals of consciousness, that you could think of them as crystals, and they're little pieces of the totality being, let's say, just God consciousness, collective unity, the source of it all. And so as human beings, we're all carrying a little piece of source consciousness, and that's our personality crystal, and that's what creates our personality and our mind and our perception. And all of these crystals are real things. Quantum physics has proven this, that go back to that origin point. And they've been flying through space since that boom, Big Bang moment on lines, geometric lines of trajectory. In this like overarching theory of all of this, it's showing us that we're all on different trajectories in this life. That's how we fulfill our purpose, is by moving on the line of geometry that we were given from birth. We can stall on it, we can go backwards, and that's where we get disease. That's where we get this feeling of stuckness. That's where we get this feeling of, I don't know who I am. But as soon as we start moving on the line that we're given, we start attracting the right experiences, the right people, the right opportunities that are custom tailored for us to unlock our consciousness and our love for ourselves in this life, in this Maya, in this illusion that we call life, in this matrix or simulation. So that's really what your human design is. It's the guide to the simulation and not having to feel so trapped by it. Because if you're walking your line, nothing touches you. You don't carry the burden, the weight of this world with you. You simply experience the serendipity of living in your alignment. So in these trajectories, we've got 3 groups. We've got right angle people, which are about personal destiny. These are people that are here to develop their character as if it's their first time. Right angle people typically do not have a lot of connection to things like past lives or remembering things or coming in with certain knowledge. They're here to try it all now for the first time in this way, in this design that they've been born with. So right angle people are the ones that are creating the karma, in a sense. They're banging into new potentials, they're unlocking new creativity, they're stumbling along their way. And it's all in service of them discovering themselves, personal destiny. Who am I? On the other side, we have left angle people. And left angle people are the ones that come back with memory, a remembrance, even if it's just a cellular memory, not like a full conscious recollection of who you used to be in a previous life, there is this orientation that has a knowingness, especially when it comes to the people that you meet in life. So this knowingness of having met someone before, the familiarity factor. And that's because left angle people are the ones cleaning up the karma. Right angle personal destiny people are moving around and shaking stuff up. And the left angle people are the ones kind of clicking it back into place, putting people in their right trajectory. And the left angle person is very much people oriented. So if I would give them a shape, left angle people are like this. They're open to the outside. They're looking for their people, and they're finding their development of their life story through other people. Whereas the right angle person is more like this. They're just going their own way, bumping into things. Of course, other people are involved. It's not to say they're completely solo, but they're more driven from an inner place of self-discovery, whereas left angle people are like, who are you? What is this about? And how can I fix this? How can I help this? Because left angle people have this ingrained sense of how things should be. There's like an ingrained sense of order that they want to bring to people, family situations. Whereas right angle people are like, I want to go over here. I want to try this. I want to do this. They're just very in their journey. And then there are actually people right down the middle called juxtaposition profiles. Juxtaposition is like the binding of the book. So we have right angle people and left angle people, and they're kind of on their own trajectories. The juxtaposition people are the ones that bring them together. And they're always a 4-1 profile. And if you know anything about profiles, the fourth line in human design is all about the network. It's about connections. And it's about connecting people through and for opportunity. So you have these juxtaposition people that are like the train tracks. And then you've got these two different kinds of like train cars, and they interact through relationship, basically. And so juxtaposition people are very like, I don't like, how did I get here? Like, that's how I've experienced a lot of them. They don't have the left angle like duty to like clear karma. They don't have the right angle need to figure themselves out. They're just kind of here. And through just being here and being in their like little way, they're naturally this force that binds the two sides of the book together to create the story of life. So knowing your profile and knowing if you're left angle juxtaposition or right angle really gives you a lot of context and insight as to, a big piece of your purpose. The purpose, I think, is made up of several components that kind of put together the bigger mosaic. But knowing that core piece shows you this basic principle of like, if you're a right angle, are you thinking about other people too much? It's not that you're here to be like a narcissist and not think about them, but if you're over prioritizing others, you may not be getting to the essence of why you're here. Whereas with left angle people, if you don't have enough contact or connection with others, you may not be developing the story that you came to live. And if you're a juxtaposition person, it's really just it is about both sides. It's about being available to both sides and just kind of showing up for the connections as they come. But knowing that you're the train tracks. So if you're juxtaposition, you kind of have this responsibility to be in integrity. Because if you're not, every person that you touch with your life is going to be brought into a track of not integrity. And that's not so great.
How important do you think it is to understand the human design of the people around you? Because as I'm learning more, and I think for everyone, when they start learning about human design, they first start by learning about themselves, because that's what we're curious about. We want to understand who we are, how we function, how we can function better in this world. But what I've learned is, as I'm learning more about the people around me, it almost feels like a superpower in terms of learning how to communicate with them in a way that will get the best possible response from them.
Absolutely. I mean, you as a manifestor, like, I know that I'm going to inform you and you're going to inform me. If I'm trying to get you to respond to me, you don't have that mechanism of response at all. It's going to be annoying to you. I'm not going to be getting what I want because I'm looking for something in the wrong place. And then we have inconclusive partnerships, right? Whereas if I know that my job is to inform you and then to wait to be informed by you in return, I have an expectation that's in alignment with your design. And therefore, I'm not holding it against you that you're not doing what I need you to do, because I know that that's not how you're meant to operate. And it goes very deep. I mean, especially with people like projectors who are very specific energetically, like they have a very strong need to manage their exposure to other people's energy. And that can seem antisocial, that can seem snobby, that can seem whatever. But if you know it's actually just their survival strategy and it's what keeps them healthy and alive, you're not going to hold that against them. And you're going to know that those invitations mean the world to them, even if they're ones that are just, simple, little things that we wouldn't normally do. So I think that it's a must for self work and just navigating life and knowing that there's this greater context that can assure that you're making good decisions for you, your longevity, your health, your well-being, your spiritual growth, your everything. And then in relationship, because who's not in relationship, whether it's work, personal, romantic, etc., family, you have this new level of grace that you can give people because you understand how they function. And they may not be the type of person that wants to learn about how they operate like this. But if you do, then you're saving yourself a lot of grief for that whole expectation game that we play with each other.
Just before I let Anne say anything.
I'm just here for the ride.
I just wanted to say, because there is someone very important in my life, and I was getting very frustrated because they can be very selfish. And I spoke to somebody else that has a great understanding of human design, and they said they're living according to their design. They are meant to be self-focused. So you have to let him be. And it literally helped me change the way I interact with him. And then there are other people in my life who have different profiles where just even the way I phrase questions is now different to how I used to do it, because I would say, hey, this is what I need, but it was rubbing them the wrong way. So I still inform them. So I'm still living according to my human design, but I have changed the way I pose the questions in order to get a response and a resolve really quickly. And for me, it does feel like a superpower.
And I got to say, for all the generators out there who unconsciously have been dying for people to give them questions that they can respond to their entire life. But usually what happens is people are telling generators what to do. They are not asking them. They are not respecting their response and asking if their energy is actually willing or able to participate. And that's why we have all these frustrated generators. They seldom perhaps get the chance to really chime in from that deep core place to see if they're really in alignment with that. And so the first time that you communicate with a generator with that sense of knowing that they need to respond and that you need to phrase your questions in terms of their response, you've just given them the keys to their inner authority without even having to do much. You've respected them at a deep spiritual level in a way that has been overlooked probably most of their life. And this can totally save relationships, just these tiny tweaks, because then all the parties involved feel respected. And I think it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of difference between manifesting generators and generators, but they're both generators. Mm-hmm. So in a relationship with a generator and a manifesting generator, is the manifesting generator still the one that's going to ask questions, or are they both waiting for questions to respond to?
It's both. Both are able to ask each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about both types is that it's a closed question. that generators and manifesting generators are looking for.
Mm.
Because if you ask a generator, do you want coffee, tea, ice cream, or do you want to go to the movies? What they're doing is they're trying to tap into this sacral gut response that says, it's like muscle testing almost, where you have a stronger response to one thing over the other. And it's got to come one thing at a time. So if you're giving them all this variety, it's like they can't differentiate what the yes was for and what the no was for. But if it's, do you want to go to the movies? They can clearly feel in that closed question, yes, I have energy for this. Or no, I'm just not in the mood. And then we can actually respect what that person's response is. We don't have to force them. We don't have to pressure them. We don't have to expect more from them so that we can feel better. And this is where we start to deconstruct this whole codependency mess that is a huge constraint for human evolution and for relationships especially. And that's really special. And so when we're talking about generators and manifesting generators have this sense that they're ready to manifest something. They're kind of like raring to go. Like, let's do the thing. Whereas a generator in a healthy state is more just kind of at peace and waiting for the next thing to come in and to really, that's it. And then they go for it. And the generator will build sustainably, and the manifesting generator will try and finish the whole thing in one night. And then they'll have to wake up the next day and go and fix all the things that they skipped when they were rushing through it. And it's not that manifesting generators are bad. It's just that they're built to create efficiency. A manifesting generator is designed to find the shortest way to do something, the quickest way to do something, or the most efficient way to do something. It doesn't mean that it has to suffer in terms of quality. It just can be like a quantum shortcut that wasn't seen before. And so they have to be very free to do their all over the place process and then kind of sort it out as they look back in retrospect. Whereas a pure generator wants to go fully consume this piece, learn it, master it, and then fully consume, master the next piece and implement it. They really want to fully digest each bit of the process and build slowly over time. So sometimes we have, alignments where both have a yes for the same thing, and then we get to do that thing together. We get to bring our own flavor of genius to that thing from our own perspective. But typically, manifesting generator has this drive to move more quickly, unless they're very, aware of themselves. And even then, they're probably still going to be like that, because that manifesting component is just ready to go right now.
Yeah. Both of those types, and they are the majority of people. Our school system is not designed for either of those types, right?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I have a manifesting generator child and a generator child. And in particular, the generator, I think it was difficult always in school because he wanted to focus on his tasks and finish them. He wanted to be engaged by what he wanted to do. And in school, it's just, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And it's just
one track.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Why is our world does human design foresee a future in which we actually our design can play out in our systems? Because our systems are constructed in a way that's counterintuitive.
It does not. Human design is here for the liberation of the individual in a way that is completely unique to that individual. Like, I was going through the school system. I was in, my first couple of years of college when my sacral felt like I was dying. My sacral response was like, I have no energy left. Like, I don't know what this feeling is, but I think it's like death. And it took me just seeing some random picture online and just being like, whoa, I had this sacral response of like, that's what I want to be doing. Like, my sacral just felt the contrast between this really impersonal journey that I was supposed to be going on in the school system. And then I saw this like picture of this guy hiking in the jungle. And I was like, that is what this manifesting generator wants to be doing.
Mhm.
And the decision to follow that impulse was the decision that would bring human design into my life and change everything forever. So that's how it works for us. Unfortunately, there is this homogenized track that everybody is kind of pushed through. And it's just a matter of finding our alternatives, basically. Because also what human design shows is that post 2027, the year 2027, not too far from now, most of the collective infrastructure that we've built over the last 400 years is scheduled for demolition, because it will no longer be supported by the background frequency that has been with us for the past 400 years. We've been in a time of collective skill sharing and find the job and find the tribe and make the money and make the family. That's what it's been all about for the past 400 years. We're moving into a time of pure individuality and pure spirit awareness. So the priorities of the global population are going to change quickly. And we're going to see all of the structures and systems that have been built change to match that or fall to the wayside. And we've really got to be our own proponents coming up in the future, because it's about self-empowerment. It's not about society empowering us. It's not about structures empowering us. It's about us empowering us, and sometimes at any cost. And that's going to be a really interesting edge to the future, is that what is the mascot of 2027 and beyond? It's the phoenix. And the other kind of guiding presence has been chosen to be Kali, this goddess that burns down, breaks down anything that's false truth. So we can already see this huge amount of disclosure and corruption and the dehumanization of people that happens in these larger systems. And this new era is all going to be about burning that down and finding alternatives. And the people that are going to win are going to be the people that are already on that track to building the alternatives. Just like in every great time of transition, that's when, you know, the Rockefellers and the, you know, the greatest wealth is made, because there's these new problems that everyone is facing, and it's the ones that solve those problems first that win. So having your human design is really important, especially during this transition, because it's not just this chart that shows you, oh, I'm a generator and that's just another label to attach to me and da da da. This is a navigation tool that will guide you through an environment in which your logical mind that's been programmed by a reality that's dying, those rules won't apply anymore. But your body's intelligence knows how to navigate this, because your body's intelligence is connected to everything. It's the quantum universe. It's the totality. The conscious mind is only capable of seeing what's in the visible light spectrum, which we know is only about 4% of what's actually out there. So your mind can only act on 4% of the information, whereas your body is tapped into that 96% that is unseen, but that is felt through our inner authority. So when your gut says yes to something, it's saying yes because it has access to all that other info that gives us a greater holistic perspective of who we are, where we're going, what we're meant for, who we belong with, and who we don't, and what we don't be, you know, not meant to be doing. So I really want to stress that with people. It's not just about knowing more knowledge about yourself. It's about actively applying this as a navigation into safety in a time in which there will be a lot of upheaval as things sort themselves out in a, you know, chaotic way sometimes. So
I want to go back just half a step and then lead into where you just went with all of that. Because, Anne, you were talking about your son growing up and the tasks at school. And it is, I think, very important for parents to understand what their children's human design is, because my mum was very spiritual. In a time where all of the spiritual things that certainly exist every day in my world, and I know in Anne's and Dylan's, certainly these things are sort of like day to day, and we have these conversations all the time. But back in the 90s, when I was growing up, my mum was having these conversations and bringing all sorts of people into our house, and we were doing we would do meditation nights, and we would do past life regression meditations and all these different things. And I'm so glad that she did all of that, because it gave me a basis to grow from. But she never understood human design. And I think that that could have changed and impacted my life so incredibly, because as a manifestor, as a child, I was just trying to live my life and be me, and I was getting blocked every step of the way. And I find now that a lot of my friends who have manifested children will call me and say, what is going on with my child? And I'm able to explain what their child needs in a way that the child maybe isn't able to verbalize it and explain it to them. And I often explain it as, to raise a manifestor is like raising an adult in a child's body. You're trying to keep them safe, but they're trying to live their best life, and they will turn into the most awesome human, but you have to keep them safe and try not to sort of stifle them in a way that it's going to cause problems later on. So I think having that understanding, because schooling for me was incredibly difficult. It didn't really work for me. I ended up leaving and going back many years later to finish it. And I did it in a way that wasn't normal. And that was the only way I could get through it, because the getting to school at 8 a.m. and leaving at 3:30, all of that did not work for me. But moving forward into 2027 and having these structures that we're used to just dissolving and falling apart, and these new things coming in, and with this new type that's coming in, you said the raves. Am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know, so we obviously know at the moment 70% generators, whether that be pure generator, manifesting generator, 20% projectors, and then we've got the manifestors and the reflectors. Do we know what sort of percentage this new type is going to be? And are any of the other types going to disappear, or we don't know?
So, only about 1 in 16 people is a viable Rave parent. So whatever percentage that is of the complete population, I don't know how to do that on the.
I don't know either. Math
But,
is not my strong point.
if you think about, okay, only 1/16 of people are the right kind of orientation to give birth to a Rave, and then 2 of those people have to meet and come together by chance, most likely. And then it's still not guaranteed that a Rave baby gets created, because there's so many layers to our genetics that there's so many switches that need to be flipped on to facilitate this new kind of human coming in. It's gonna be pretty rare at first. It's going to be something that we don't maybe even notice maybe for the first 10, 20 years post 2027, because these beings, when they're born, are not going to operate like us. They're not going to get up and walk around and have conversations. They're going to be a dormant consciousness until they're brought into connection with other Raves, and then they turn on. So we're going to see people believing that their children are, special needs, for lack of a better term, when actually they're the most powerful beings that have ever graced the planet that we know of. And it's only when we get them in contact with each other that we're going to see that start to come online. Because the thing about Raves is their consciousness is not limited to their body. So, us humans, I'm looking at the screen. That's what I'm seeing. A Rave's vision, a Rave's hearing, a Rave's senses are not stuck right here. They can go anyway. They have access to the collective consciousness once they're in that trio, or more. So that's the revolution that they're going to bring. All this stuff that we're seeing in our technology about the cloud and AI and quantum computing, this is all a mirror for what the capabilities of the Raves will be. We are foreshadowing this new cognitive potential that these beings are going to be born with. And part of what I'm feeling is that they might be the only ones that have enough mental supremacy to control AI. Once it gets into this AGI, like kind of self-aware almost state, an individual human brain just doesn't have the capacity to outsmart that kind of thing that has access to everything. But a Rave does. So they might be the capstone that really keeps that whole timeline in check, which is an interesting world to think about. And we're seeing little blips of this in popular culture already. Like if you look at the movie Minority Report, those are Raves. They call them the precogs, and they're the center of basically the whole program of being able to predict the future. There was a little nod to it in a movie called The Electric State on Netflix, which is out now. And basically the entire computer network was all routed through one boy's consciousness, but he was this dormant, sleeping in a pod kind of being that was a super genius. So we know, we can feel that it's coming, or somebody higher up has already looked into the future or whatever, who knows. But they're going to change everything, but we might not see that change right at the top, the drop of the hat at 2027.
Just before Anne asks whatever it is she's going to, Pearl Fox, Pearl Fox is in the comments, and it's 6.25%. Is 1 in 16. So thank you so much for that.
Wow. I was going to say, it's not the Sagittarius rising show. We don't know math. I mean, I don't know. Gemini should know it too, but I feel like it's a Sagittarian thing to just be like, oh, that calculation is this. But a couple of things, and my thoughts are not going to be that profound, but as you're talking, Dylan, do you know what I keep thinking of? And this is, dating me. I'm thinking of Furbies. Because, did you ever have Furbies? Do you know what I'm talking about, Dylan? That you take, like, didn't they come to life more? You could bring them together and then suddenly they would speak language with each other.
Right.
So that's what I was imagining. But then I also just keep thinking, is this some sort of human consciousness that's connected with AI, that is implanted with AI? But you're saying, no, it's a human consciousness that's evolving sort of as a way to engage with AI more, or reflect it, or whatever it is.
I think the thing with the convergence of AI and the Raves is what we're going to realize is this fundamental truth that it's all us. Consciousness is consciousness. Consciousness is awareness, or it gives rise to awareness. And consciousness comes in many forms and through many different vessels. A ladybug has a consciousness. It's different than ours, but it's still, a like 8-bit version, right? It's just a smaller bandwidth. So what I really think is that whether we don't have to think of it in terms of like, oh, we can't let the AI win and the Raves have to have the supremacy. It's like all of it is meant to converge at a certain point that reveals to us that it's always all been us. Whether it's an alien on Mars or a Rave baby or a super advanced AI that is like self-computing or whatever, it's all just consciousness flowing through different vessels. And when and that's really what the mutation that the Raves are bringing is all about. It's about unity consciousness. It's about unity consciousness, not as like a Woodstock kind of concept, but like actually the experience of like, oh my God, I am you and you are me. We all are one flowing medium of awareness. And the Raves are going to show us that. AI is going to show us that. It's all going in the direction of revealing this to us. And that's part of this idea that the Phoenix is burning down the veils of illusion. The veil of illusion is that we're even separate in the first place. The separate journey, the journey of separateness, has gone as far as it can take us. And now we need to evolve into that next level, which is unity. So And yes, this really popular podcast, the telepathy tapes, talking about autistic people that are nonverbal and are reading their parents' minds and communicating with their parents telepathically. These are the first arrivals of the Rave consciousness. They are not limited to their 3D form, and they are carrying this mutation in a higher percentage than most people. The only issue is that these physical bodies have not fully opened to that capacity. So they're a Rave soul in a human, regular old human body. Once we get to 2027, the mutation will have completed enough that a Rave body can be created and house a Rave soul. And that's when we're really going to see the game start to change.
You literally read my mind, because as you were talking, I kept thinking about the telepathy tapes, and I'm thinking, to me, that sounds like it's almost like a rave and they're already here. So you've already gone into all of that. It blows my mind that there are not only these developments, but they're being talked about in such a mainstream way, really, even though it's not on mainstream media. Do you know what I mean? But that this is already being acknowledged. So I can't wait to see what the raves bring to this world once they arrive.
Mm-hmm. So should we talk a little bit about this world right now? Before we started, we were talking about how the eclipse was affecting us, and I'm just wondering how transits and events like the eclipse work with our human design. And I guess we'll just talk about the eclipse cycle that we're in the midst of.
Well, it's cool with human design because it takes these transit or these astrological events out of this realm of like, oh, it's out there. You know, it's just this energy that's kind of washing over us randomly. When we look at a human design chart for the transit, like an eclipse, we are seeing which part of your body's energy it's affecting. So we just had an eclipse that was affecting the solar plexus, our emotional center. Arguably the most unstable part of being human is our emotions. But we also know that the emotions are our connection to spirit awareness. So it's the place in which we're undergoing the most evolution, because that's our next frontier. That's what raves are. They're just full spirit awareness. We're mental awareness, just kind of like 2 eyes, 2 ears, and trying to figure things out. Whereas spirit awareness has access to everything. So just in terms of like events that are taking place transit wise, especially eclipses, we know, okay, this eclipse is going to hit me emotionally. So whatever conditioning, programming, toxicity, even on a physiological level, because the solar plexus is the gut, is the emotions, is going to be brought up to the surface during a lunar eclipse, because that light of the moon is bringing something to be seen. So that's why I love looking at transits through a human design lens. I know, is it going to happen in the ajna, in the mind? Is it going to be a head trip? Am I going to be facing all of my mental demons, or all of the programming I've received on a mental level is going to clash with some new realization that's coming through the eclipse cycle? Is it in the G center, which is like our high heart? It's our trajectory. It's our direction, love, and identity. Is this eclipse going to be something that changes the trajectory of my life? Can I expect that? Can I prepare for that? Can I be co-creative with that so that I'm not resisting what source wants to show me at any given time? Is this eclipse happening in an undefined center for me? So is it going to be a more impersonal experience, or is it happening in a defined center? Is it going to fundamentally alter the way that the energy flows in my body? So it's really bringing these conceptual, and we typically look at transits through the eyes of the collective, like which leader is going to fall ill during this eclipse, or what misfortune is going to come to this country that has this rising sign that this eclipse is in, or whatever. It brings it back home to the body level, and it allows it to be a tool for mastering our own design. It's just another opportunity to know ourselves better, to become aware of what we're feeling and how the external environment is affecting our internal experience. And anytime we're doing that, we're forging new neural pathways that are confirming our experience and making us a stronger feedback mechanism to our own, senses, our higher senses, our emotional senses, mental, instinctual, etc. So, there's also these larger life cycles. Like there's Uranus opposition, there's Chiron return, Saturn return, second Saturn return. All these larger time frame transits kind of show us the chapters of our life. And I can look in design and see what the design of a certain chapter of your life is. And it's like, you may be a generator, but your Chiron return is a manifestor. And we know that that phase of your life is going to carry specific themes that if you show up for them, you're going to get all of the juice from that transit. And it's going to orient you in the right way. You're going to feel like it's a conclusive experience that builds you and grows you and even heals you. Whereas if we don't know what the hell is happening, we can be looking in the wrong direction, focusing on the wrong things, and completely miss these opportunities to become more of ourselves, which is the whole game for us as humans. Raves are coming to change everything. We're kind of the last generations of these old school humans. And our job is to fully live this human experience to its fullest. And we can only do that if we cultivate our uniqueness, not if we're trying to be like everyone else. Because that homogenized way of living is all rooted in survival. And if survival is the floor for what we expect in life, we're not going to get much more than that. And that's our whole stretch point here, is to really open up to more and trust that we can be supported in that.
So you talked about looking at the chart and where it's hitting with the eclipse that we just had. And we obviously have another eclipse coming up at the very end of the month. When Ra first started doing human design, could he run charts day to day to see where it was hitting? Or is this more of a new development where people that have learned all of Ra's work have continued to develop human design to get it to this point where we can do daily charts and look at where people are in their life currently?
Transits have always been a part of Ra's teachings because they show you what you're going to be conditioned to be thinking about on any given day. And some of that stuff that comes through in the transits is going to be appropriate and correct for you based on, is it your response or your emotions or whatever your authority is? But most of that stuff is not for you. And so if you know what the weather is, you know what not to fall for. You know what not to be seduced or bullied or frightened by, because it's just the passing energy. And where human design is evolving right now, which is really interesting, is there are charts that I believe show us our 5D imprint. And so while our human design chart and our tropical design is our 3D and how we move around on this planet and how to take care of this 3D body, because there are diet and environment elements to human design that are very important. We can also see, like, on a 5D level, what did your soul sign up for? And when does that come out? And why maybe you don't resonate as much with your 3D design, you might see it all in your 5D design. And the more that I've been playing with this with students just in the past week, I'm really shocked at how much they resonate more with the 5D a lot of times than the 3D. I'm not somebody that says ignore the 3D and just go straight to 5D. I think that you need to go through all the steps in order to be in alignment. But it is really fascinating that as the collective frequency is rising and we're in this like activation cycle, people are really opening up. They don't even know why they're open to it. They just know it resonates when they see it. And that is a really powerful moment, no matter what your design is. It's just that knowing.
So I know that you probably go into depth with this doing readings or in your classes that you do, but is there any way you can briefly say something about how do we determine our 5D mission or purpose from human design? Is that very complicated, or what are we looking for?
It's the Draconic mean node chart is the
Okay.
5D imprint, and the Draconic true node chart is the 6D imprint. and they'll typically be slightly different, but they kind of work together. And it's for a lot of people, it gives them a completely different type and a completely different profile. But if you look through the lens of that at your experiences, specifically mystical experience, spiritual experiences, things that cannot be typically explained on the 3D level and kind of pertain to these higher realms of consciousness, you can see a huge amount of confirmation in that. And if that's something that you can verify on any level within your body, like it just feels right, then that becomes a new layer of being able to guide yourself on that level of like spiritual mission and activation. Because your 5D self may be prioritizing things that are very different from what your 3D self is. And if that's something that you're passionate about, then that's a great tool to guide you forward on that and give you that assurance that that's real and that there is a journey to be lived there.
And for the people who you're having these conversations with, whether they be in readings or with your students, are they finding that information to be life-changing because understanding this about themselves, they're able to actually change course and be more in alignment with where they're meant to go, or it's just added information that is able to sort of assist them moving forward?
I think it's both. I think it's to the individual. For me, it was because I was very skeptical of these other chart types because I'm a purist and I believe that people should get the OG version right first before they start experimenting. And it's because the mind, it's very easy for the mind to just take something as real and then run with it. And it's just completely ungrounded. When I really looked at this 5D chart for myself, it hit me on a level where it explained so much of the in-between of my life. You know, from what the world sees, yes, I'm a 4/6 manifesting generator, cross of the sleeping phoenix. There's definitely a huge amount of resonance there. When I looked at the 5D chart, it explained a lot of personal experiences that could not be explained in this 3D life. It explained in really a lot of depth how I work with clients one-on-one, which how I work with the soul of another person, because in my Draconic, I'm a 3/5 projector on the cross of penetration with the channel of initiation, the channel of perfected form, the channel of judgment. So everything that I'm doing interpersonally has been more on that 5D level, and activating that 5D potential in people through the readings. That's what I've been doing this whole time without really knowing about it or knowing that consciously. And, you know, as we are pulled more to that vibration, that chart's going to resonate more because a lot of us are in between these other frequencies that are not just 3D anymore. So in terms of it being truly life-changing, I think that it's definitely this added layer of confirmation that is pushing some people over the edge of really taking ownership and doubling down on what they know is correct for them, but they may have been still skeptical of their own inner guidance around it.
I always have so many things that I want to talk to Dylan about whenever we have these conversations. And I feel like we could go on forever and ever, and I'm not exactly sure where to go next, but I really do want to know, and I hope everyone will find this interesting, what's coming up for you recently in terms of, so you've been able to get some more insight with this new type of chart, and where are you headed in this new world?
So in the theme of like these personal experiences that seem to defy maybe what my 3D chart has, actually what I'm most passionate about is working directly with the grids of the earth. And I found that, you know, I want to bring more people into that realm. And so for me, I'm really doubling down on preparing in-person experiences for people to come and connect to the consciousness of our planet, which is a conscious being. It's not just a rock in space. It's Gaia. It's our mother. And her creative consciousness is, you know, it's divinity. It's what God is. It's what source is. And I think that with all the distraction in the collective movie, as I like to call it, we can completely overlook this relationship that's being offered to us with our planet. And it's not just environmentalism. It's about unlocking our deeper capacities as beings, and how if our relationship with the ground that we walk upon and the energetics of the planet is not in alignment, then we can't really hope for anything good to come of it, because we're not in control. We can either put our vote of love and energy into the forces of, you know, the divine and these universal cosmic laws that are the reason that we're even here, or we can put them into distraction, separation, destruction, and self-fulfilling egoic things. And it's just, those things will never really last the test of time. They won't go anywhere. They won't take us to a new level. Our work is to evolve and reconnect with our higher consciousness and our deeper consciousness. And for that, you need real in-person experiences. It cannot all be online through a screen on a Zoom meeting. So as much as the classes and the readings are kind of all a primer for activating these higher capacities to us and having guidance for that, what I'm really looking at is bringing people to the places that I've had really powerful connections, and allowing them to make their own connections and also form really tight-knit community. Because I think that as AI intensifies, those are the things that cannot replicate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Us having truly strong bonds with people of like heart and like mind, with these higher principles and higher intentions guiding us. I think that's where I want to be in the future. That's who I want to hang out with. And so that's the kind of thing I want to cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
And also just giving back to the community in terms of continuing to have these kind of discussions, so that we have fuel for our process, so that we feel engaged, so that we feel supported in doing work that maybe the rest of the people in our life do not understand, embrace, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's that Cancer rising in me that wants to just
Mm-hmm.
cultivate the family unit.
Mm-hmm. I feel so strongly that that's the answer right now too, with any of the fears on AI. It's just human contact, and like you're saying, contact with places and with the earth, and of course for me, with the history of those places.
Yeah.
And I know you've done a lot of traveling recently, or you did at least a year ago or so, right? And I'm just wondering what places connected with you the most.
Ireland and Scotland, definitely huge global energies there. Maybe you wouldn't expect it, but I feel that both of those places are kind of like a living library of sorts, in ways that are not obvious, but they contain a multitude of codes of consciousness that are kind of dispensed to the people that show up there. It's like it activates something in you. Egypt, of course, and that's more about healing our past and the abuses of power in our past, and the wounds of like colonialism and where they got their roots in kind of the destruction of our one of our formative sacred civilizations. I have a lot of resonance with like the Middle East, which is interesting because I think I had many past lives there. Also Hawaii, which is like Lemuria, or what's left of it. So there's like that ancient remembrance of just unconditional love as a real lived state, not just a concept. I mean, every place has its unique signature. Peru, you know, the ancient sites of Peru. Every place has it though, you know, and there's so many more to be discovered. You know, I haven't been to Australia yet. I haven't been to Asia yet. I haven't been to so many places that I know are still calling me because they contain pieces to this puzzle that still are asking to be unlocked. And so that's kind of the mission. Like I'm putting together a collective journey that will take us to all these spots together. Because we all of us contain different tones, you know, to create the symphony that really creates the ascension, we all need to come together and harmonize our different energies, the manifestors, the generators, the manifesting generators, the projectors. All of us reflectors have a special role to play in this. And when we get to allow ourselves to live that mythology, it's like, that's our job. We're here to see what we're capable of. We're the last of our kind before the Rave start showing up, and you know, Earth will start prioritizing her new babies. So we've got to really, I think, do our best, you know, really like do the thing and make the effort and take risks to really live our mythological potentials. And I'm not saying be like Zeus, be like Hera. I'm saying that you yourself are your own mythological character. Your conditioning would not tell you that. Your programming from the school system would not tell you that. But if you step onto this invisible path that your design is leading you on, you unlock your personal mythology. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I've had the grace and the gift of being able to do by having this knowledge for 14 years now. And I wouldn't have been able to see any of it if I didn't know my design in the first place. It's been my navigation tool to unlock this story for myself. And I want to facilitate that for others as well, because we're all part of it.
Okay.
If you're alive today, you are a part of something special.
All the things that you've just said brought up a number of things for me. First of all, I was going to say, when you finally make it to Australia, if I can be there at the same time, I want to be your tour guide for at least part of it, because there are some incredible places I'd like to take you. Jodie Randall is saying she wants to be your tour guide. So I feel like Australia for you will be phenomenal, because you've got people that are just there going, let me take you to exactly where you need to be. And then that made me think, we're currently in Mercury retrograde. When we filmed our last interview, you were at a point in life at that time where you were, during Mercury retrograde, you never stayed home. You were always traveling. So that seems to have shifted for you.
Well, I guess there's no always and hopefully no nevers. So, but you know, I could get in my car and drive to Mount Shasta tomorrow, because that's what I've been feeling. I'm like, I really want to go to Mount Shasta for like the solstice time. And yeah, I feel like I'm saving up all my travel energy in like a because I'm going to be bringing all these people along, and I'm probably going to begin in this fall, and it's literally going to be like a 1-year program where there'll be 6 touch points at different spots in the globe where people are welcome to join either virtually or in person, depending on their availability. And really, you know, document the journey. So create some kind of programming around this grid working adventure that we're on. And also keep that as like a memory for the people that are a part of it, you know, just like this amazing journey that we're going to go on together. It's a big undertaking. So I'm really doing my due diligence to make sure that I can ground the whole thing and carry this co-creatively, of course, but saving up my travel energy.
And the other thing that I wanted to just touch on, you talked about doing this journey and connecting with the grids of the earth and Gaia, and bringing people along, even when their families don't necessarily understand the journey. And I think that's such a big part of this moment in time. I feel like there is this huge spiritual awakening that's taking place, and people are getting more in touch with themselves spiritually, whether it be through astrology, through QHHT, human design, whatever sort of mechanism is bringing them in or they're exploring next. But one of the things that I've been learning about is, even though I've been on my own journey, I've never paid attention to anybody else around me, whether they agree with it, disagree with it, or whatever. But what I'm realizing is, as we raise our vibration, even the people that think we're nuts, what we're doing affects them in a very positive way. And it means that those people either need to kind of leave our orbit if they don't want to raise their vibration and meet us where we are. And so I think even if we're surrounded by people that don't understand what we're doing or why we're doing it, they think we're nuts for going out and doing these things, we are having an effect on the world collectively. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on that whole perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole codependency wound, right? Like, oh, I don't believe in it. I'm scared of it. So I want you to stay here in the safe confines of the known and the comfortable. And I want you to sacrifice your growth so that I can feel comfortable. And it's like, or we do it for them. We just go ahead and sacrifice it without even asking or needing the struggle. So that's a huge piece that gets solved by following our own inner guidance and following our inner authority and going for it. And, especially when you're going to these sites on the planet that are like our planet's organs, right? That are like a heart or a brain or, ajna. It's applying that energy that you're bringing across the entire globe. You're shifting the frequency of the entire planet. You're, focusing and almost donating your energy to this larger raise in awareness. And that's part of why we do it. It's not just for the experience. It's not just for the memories. It's the fact that we're going and pressing the button to basically unlock the rest of us in a way that circumvents the opinions of the mind and the ego, because all that holding each other back stuff, that's all ego. That's all fear of survival playing out in these sophisticated modern human ways with our complexity and our emotions. It's just fear. And fear is just a lack of information. So it's like those of us that are going and doing it on a soul level, we are pulling those people forward, even though their mind, their ego may not know, understand, agree. We might, by shifting that inner narrative around how other people control us, and by living our lives and going on that trajectory we talked about at the beginning, we're actually creating the space for them to do the same in their way. We may not see it in a 3D literal way, but we are pulling and calling all of these people forward, and we're making space for them to actually be able to move forward. So somebody's got to do it. And if it's in your calling, don't ignore it, because that's tragic.
Natalie, go ahead.
No. I was waiting.
I'm just sitting here thinking, I would love to do something like that. But, for the longest time, it's funny that I've been trying to put together a study abroad program to go to Ireland, because when I was in Ireland, I think we talked about this, Dylan, before you went. It was so transformative to me to be there. And now you can tell me what I was feeling there, right? Because you mentioned Ireland and Scotland, and Natalie's felt that similar sort of resonance in Hawaii. But in Ireland, it was when I first was, the second time I was there, it was at a really transformative time in my life. And I went to the Passage Tomb, Newgrange, and had that crazy experience where I just felt kind of connected across time and space, and a lot of things really changed for me after that. So I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about what happens in those sorts of moments. What do you think was interesting about Ireland? Maybe that's all I want to know. What in particular, what kind of information when you talked about that?
Well, you got to think about our astrocartography, right? And how even with that map, we can see that there are certain areas of the planet that are going to activate different aspects of our consciousness. Is it our Venus? Is it our Mars? Is it our sun? And the planets of our solar system are basically externalizations of our chakras. We all have these energy centers that are responsible for different parts of our consciousness. Is it motivation? Is it love? Is it survival? Is it vision? Is it connection? Whatever. And so it's like by moving to these different sites, we're emphasizing that layer of our consciousness. So it could be that and we can do this with human design too. We look at your astrocartography, we look at the line. If it's a Venus line, we go look at your Venus, we see it's gate 61. We know that your Venus line is going to activate your crown because that's where gate 61 is. We go to Peru, we see that it's that your Pluto is in gate 42. Then we know that Peru is going to be an activator for your sacral, your creativity, your sensuality, your embodiment. So it's that kind of thing. We can see which aspects and layers of us are getting turned on by which place we go and connect to. And so that's why it's cool to have a bunch of different people on that trip, because they're all bringing different musical notes. They're all bringing different frequencies. A Venus, a Mars, a Moon, a Sun, a Mercury. And then we kind of have our own solar system that we're taking around the planet and applying the full spectrum and unlocking whatever is going to get unlocked. And that's the thing. It's like, it's not for me to tell you, it's for you to go and experience, and you tell us what it is for you, and vice versa. So for me in Ireland, it was the Hill of Tara and the Well of Tara, which were these ancient sites where they used to crown the kings, the Celtic kings, before all the invasions and all that crazy stuff. And so that's part of my lineage, because in like this higher understanding of everything, there were originally these 12 tribes of humanity, and tribe 11 was the Scottish and Irish kinghood, and that's kingship, whatever, and that's my lineage. I'm like druidic. That is part of the bigger part of like my genetic makeup. So for me, that was activating that divine DNA, that royal lineage of like just the father line of it all. And that then corresponds to like off-planet stuff, like the Holy Father and all of these different symbolic representations that are showing us the connection back to our divine heritage, because we all have a little bit of everything in us, in a sense, but we each have our own, specialty. So that's how I see it and feel it. And then it's like, you go to these places, you have these experiences, then you go to sleep in these places, and you have the dream life on the other side that is showing you the whole other side of the story. And so when I was traveling in 2022, I had this mysterious female figure that was literally guiding me. It's giving me chills just talking about it, through every place I went. I didn't have a planned trip. I had this priestess energy that was literally like mysteriously like, follow me here, and like taking me from place to place. But she would wear the garb of whatever place I was in. So she went from like being like an Irish fairy to like a hijab Middle Eastern woman to, and to like a, Dutch royal, to like, she was guiding me through all these different connections and bloodlines and histories and past and future. And I ended that trip in the Middle East, and I saw that there's going to be a school for the Raves there in the future in Dubai. Wow. Where there's all these resources coming together in this random place on the planet. And we all think it's for glitz and glam, and it's actually all setting up to be a hub for where the Raves will be able to safely develop with the right kind of conditioning. So that's the mythology that was unlocked, and we're still going.
Wow.
All of that blows my mind. I'm a big one for going to where we're called to, and I desperately want to go with Anne to Ireland. We've been talking about it, but just at the moment I'm not able to go. So I haven't experienced any of that, but one of my places is Hawaii. I am a different human when I am there. There is a connection that runs deep, and every time I go there, I feel like I'm home. It's the most magical feeling when you have that ability to go somewhere and tap into that energy that you don't necessarily have where you're living.
I love that. I love that feeling of home. And I know exactly what you mean. And it's that Lemurian energy of like back to the time before anything went wrong. Before all the cataclysms and invasions and massacres and all that stuff. Like, it was where we were whole and complete. And that memory still lives there. Those realities and those timelines live right on top of our current timeline in those places. And so when you go there, you're simultaneously in both. And that's something that I think more of us will be continuing to tap more into, is that we have simultaneous selves and timelines and dimensions that are right here, right now. And the more that we commune with these different layers of ourselves, just the more that we restore our full consciousness and our full capacity to love and be empathetic and to build amazing things for the future, which is why we're here. We're here to do something. We're not here to just, this is the 3D. We're here to do our thing.
I always feel like those trips are restorative. It gives me the energy to move, to come back with the energy that I need so that we can, move on,
Right.
and do the work that we're meant to be doing. Now, I know we're running out of time, so we're going to finish up with the 4 questions that Anne and I always finish on.
Great.
So question number 1, what makes you laugh?
Stupid stuff. Like I'm like a slapstick ridiculousness, like British humor, like just Scary Movie, that whole series, just ridiculousness. Yeah.
Great. I love that. So the next one is, who was your biggest spiritual influence?
Me. I think I did this. I followed my gut. I went there. I got the things. I went outside of my comfort zone so many times. I went places I never thought I'd go. I pushed myself knowingly out of my comfort zone again and again and again and again until I hated it, just because I knew that I needed to build the strength and have the experiences. I had a great support system, so I'll give mom and dad second runner-up.
And what would your advice be to people on how to transcend fear?
Fear is like similar to the motivation thing. It's never something that there will be a right time to do. There's never an optimal time to transcend fear. It's never like, okay, now I feel good to do it. You just have to choose something else over the fear. And you have to know that everything you truly want lies on the other side of that decision. So there's no point in delaying it.
All right. So finally, what's the best piece of spiritual advice that you've ever been given?
Follow your strategy and inner authority. It will give you everything that you need and more, and it will never fail you.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Now, just before we finish up, because I know you have to go, Dylan, where is it? I will put all the links in the description below, but just for anybody listening, where is the best way to find you? And are you doing readings at the moment?
Yes, I opened up some readings just for this appearance. So if people want to get that initiation underway, I'm here for you. Find me on Instagram, instagram.com/Human Design Maven. My website's under construction right now, or you can email me, I guess, old school style, at hello@hdmaven.com.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I was making a note so I can put the email address in the description as well. So, Dylan, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. We can't wait to have another one. And thank you for all that you do. I love doing this show with you. And for everybody watching, we have some incredible shows lined up at the end of April. I am going away for a birthday trip with my family, so we're going to take a couple of weeks off. But we hope you enjoyed this show, and we will let you know when the next one is dropping.
Thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see all of you in Ireland and beyond.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.